Hey, so I want to do a video. I've thought about this for 5 years since I got what I call sick. And I've always stopped myself because I'm afraid of getting it out coherently. And I'm just not worried about it anymore because I'm going to do this for me. But I want to tell my story about what's going on with my health. So I haven't put thought into it. I'm just doing this. Here we go. It's probably going to be long, overcomplicated. You don't have to stay for it. Around 5 years ago, in the span of about 2 to 3 weeks, I started experiencing kind of an acute onset of symptoms. A lot of the words I'm going to use sound medical because I've learned to speak that language so that I'm heard. Over a lot of trauma, figuring out what words will be heard and what won't, what makes sense to doctors to make them listen to you. So over the span of 2 to 3 weeks, acute onset of symptoms. Those symptoms included a fatigue that if you've never experienced it, you don't understand. It's not tired. I always described it as like, I don't even know if this is right, mitochondrial energy. Like whatever's producing energy in my cells is not there. That's not something I can push through, which I've done my whole life with being tired. It's when it's gone, it's gone. It's like a bank account. There's no money to spend. There's no credit to get. You just don't have it. And it was severe to the point of really just being able to do very, very, very little physical exertion of any kind in a given day. I also had systemic weakness in my muscles overnight. Swallowing pills became a thing. It was like, I would say part of the muscles in my mouth wouldn't work. I could still swallow, but it took so much concentration. It was like the coordination of how that works didn't work anymore. And so I choke on stuff. Even when I'm eating, I choke on stuff. Swallowing became hard. And then the most severe symptoms, which I now know to call neurological, I was calling like anxiety, or what I would say is adrenaline. That it was like someone had hooked up an IV of adrenaline and it was running at all times, all day, every day. From the time I opened my eyes to the time I closed them. My whole life I had no problem sleeping. I'd sleep like the dead. It's a family joke. And I could really, if I was allowed to, I would take a nap every day. I was always so tired. But all of a sudden, although I was 100 times more tired than I thought humanly possible, I also then couldn't sleep. Again, all sudden onset. So for the first time in my life, I had insomnia. So it was wired and tired. I also had cognitive issues, brain fog, what I called migraines at the time that came on that I never had. It felt like pressure headaches. Again, now getting some diagnoses and getting some clarity, I can tell what it was. I was calling it migraines. I think it was pressure headaches. And then the systemic muscle weakness, so grip strength, eyes, things that I knew they weren't deconditioning. It was too sudden, and there was like small muscles that weren't working that made no sense. And then the ability to read, which it's not that I couldn't read, I could read, but it was like I couldn't sit for a sustained period and read something like a book. I also couldn't watch TV and still can't to this day. I can, it's just very, very, very hard. And so if I watch TV, I have to be on my phone doing a very simple, repetitive game while I listen to the TV and glance up at it. I don't know. Time, I've learned this word is like depersonalization, but time, like it feels like a panic, and it was like a second was an hour. I would stare at the clock a lot. This is making me emotional. It was a really hard time. And that symptom, that adrenaline, anxiety, depersonalization, whatever was going on neurologically for me was the hardest because it felt like a torture I can't explain. It was not mild. It was so severe that I just couldn't take it. And there was no respite, not a second of respite. Like I said, while I was waking, it was there. And I could still talk through it. act for a while. I don't know how to explain it, but it was miserable. About 8 to 9 months into this, so I spent a lot of time in bed. I still worked from home, part-time, got a lot done. I could still handle the computer. I could still handle processing was a lot easier in like text or writing, email, stuff like that. And it's still that case. It's easier for me to get my thoughts out when I'm writing them out versus trying to get them out coherently talking. And I know I sound like it's okay. I've always been scattered. It's just like all that got turned up real bad. And for me, inside my head and inside what I'm experiencing, it's like when that little thing spins on the phone or something, it's loading, it's slow. It's like that. And so it's really frustrating to find words, to have everything here and not be able to get it out. And definitely not in a linear, coherent way. And people will argue with me on that, and I get it. But that's what I'm experiencing. And brain fog just feels like that. It feels like a fog, like a really thick molasses that you're trying to swim through. But there's no time. So you have to hurry, but you're like, I can't, but in your brain. During this time, I knew I had a condition called POTS because back when I was like 11, I was living in Florida. I went to go get a coffee mug for my mom and fell out. Couldn't see anything. I was still awake, but I was like blinded. I dropped the mug. I was on all fours, and I didn't know what happened, and I was like 11, so I thought, because I couldn't see anything, I had never experienced that, it was completely black, but I was still here. I thought that I had like dropped the coffee mug and it had hit my eyes, and like I wasn't feeling any pain, but I was gonna feel pain, and like I had been blinded, or there was like shards of, I don't know. And I just remember screaming, I'm blind, I'm blind. And kind of when puberty hit at that age, at 11, I started to do that. Every time I stood up, I'd get very dizzy. I never had complete syncope, like passing out, but always, or oftentimes at different spurts in my teenage years, actually, like just, I had to get down on all fours, you know, and then it would come back to me. So going to sharpen my pencil, let me fall out in front of the class. Embarrassing. I never knew what to say because I didn't have a name for it back then. And I remember when I went to get my permit, I was dumb. And they said, do you ever have dizziness? And I said, yeah. And they're like, great, you can't have your license. And I was like, I never had it like just sitting. It was always going from sitting or laying down to standing, which is typical of POTS. So it shouldn't have inhibited me getting a drive, but sure enough, it did. And I had to go to a cardiologist and get a heart monitor. And I don't remember, but they never knew what it was. I don't remember doing a tilt table test or anything like that. I just remember wearing a heart monitor and it beeping through class, and somebody thinking, I would tell the teacher that I had it, it might beep, and don't think it's a cell phone. They'd still announce it, come to me, embarrass me. I was trying so hard to hide all that. I don't know why I try to hide this stuff. There's something about it being weak, or people not believing me, or seeming dramatic that makes me hide a lot of this stuff. And I'm stopping doing that now because it does not serve anybody. It's really pride, you know? It's pride. It's not anything else than that. So it was years later. I mean, I had already been married, pregnant, had Jonathan, and was on Facebook, and there was I don't remember where I heard something about POTS, and I was like, oh, that's what I've had all these years. But I didn't do anything about it because I was still, all through this time, I was working full-time, going to school full-time. I didn't stop. I was known to be a very hard worker, a very busy person. And so looking back with the eyes I have now, I didn't, I had POTS then, I had Ehlers-Danlos then, I had these things then. I just didn't know what normal tired was. I didn't know what normal pain was. I was always in pain since I was young. All kinds of symptoms that they were just my normal. But that, this is a spectrum disorder, and a lot of times you're in better shape, not always, but in better shape when you're younger, and as you age, things go downhill. So back to when I got sick 5 years ago. Let me pause this and come back. Okay, I just realized it's gonna be hard to upload these videos, but so when I got sick, I was still working part-time from home, which was a blessing, but I was bedridden for that 8, 9, 10 months. I don't know. Again, time was hard then. And nothing changed dramatically or drastically, but if the dial is to 100 and I was in, 75, like stuff was bad at like a 75, probably like a 90, it was like it turned down to 80. But especially the adrenaline feeling, that, especially the depersonalization, whatever that particular severity, like neurological symptom was that was killing me, turned way down. And that's the only reason I believe I'm here, because I could not have taken that. It was 8 months of like Chinese water torture. It was horrific. But everything else was still there. I was still really suffering. Quality of life was still really low. But I also think I started to adapt to it. Other symptoms were popping up. There's all kinds of other things that come with this, but it's hard to differentiate for me because I had stuff before this and some of it worsened, like GERD. Anyway, so I knew I had POTS because of all that stuff before. So I go to a general practitioner. Start telling them this right off the bat, obviously. I tell them, I know I have POTS. I probably need to get that diagnosis on the charts officially and go from there, because I don't know how that's affecting this or whatever. I also knew I had mast cell activation at the time. POTS stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Postural meaning whether I'm sitting or standing. Orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So basically, gravity is our enemy. Our blood flow doesn't go to our brains when we stand up like it should. Instead, it goes to our feet. And so what does the heart do? It starts freaking out, going, uh-oh, brain needs blood, and it starts beating faster. Some of us pass out, some of us don't. But it feels pretty crummy. It comes with a lot of other symptoms. So the dramatic part you see is, oh, I'm dizzy. That is the absolute least of my problems. Me blacking out for a minute when I stand up and not be able to see, or my heart racing, is not what's bad about it. So the fatigue, people will tell you, is probably the worst. Anyway, so I go to him, and I know by then the diagnostic criteria is that my heartbeat will go from when I'm sitting or laying down, and I stand up 30 beats per minute, sustained for 10 minutes. So I just say, can you take my pulse and watch this? Because I'd done it at home. I ordered a little heart monitor on my finger. So I do it, and in front of him it goes up 75 beats per minute. And long story short, I went to a cardiologist. But I had been told to treat this, so I was taking tons of salt pills, tons of water, so I was better on the day. I drank tons of water, tons of salt, went and got a tilt table test in Tupelo. Of course, it didn't show anything, because I was treating it. Nobody told me not to. So then I was just like, oh my gosh. And I gaslit myself, maybe I don't have POTS. And when I came back to him, we ran all the panels, all the blood work was normal, the basics. Sent to an endocrinologist, did the basics panel, everything was normal. Should be no adrenaline issues is what I was told. I found out since it was just like the basic, like there's so many things she could have done that she didn't do. I went to see an endocrinologist this week, and that was validating. And asked for a referral to a neurologist from my primary care provider. The nurse called me back from his office and said, Dr. So-and-so said he cannot hand out referrals like they're candy. But before that, he had referred me to a psychiatrist. So, because I said the magic word in the chronic illness women area, which was anxiety. Don't say that word. They'll write everything off. I remember saying it's not anxiety. I feel anxious, but I think it's adrenaline. It's something, it's cortisol, it's something like that. I think I even asked him, please don't think I'm saying it's just all this is anxiety. Anyway, he said he was not a zebra doctor, he was a horse doctor. And I thought that was totally valid. I just needed you to get me to the neurologist, to the zebra doctor, please. And he wouldn't refer me to one. So, between that and the negative tilt table test, that set me back years. I remember going into Luke like a year later into the dining room. He was sitting there at the dining room table, and I sat down, I said, I need you to help me. I know I have POTS. I know the tilt table test was negative, but I know I have POTS, and I need to advocate and find someone else who will do it again. And so we found this clinic called Dysautonomia Clinic in Birmingham, Dr. Moore. And I went, Between this, there was a lot of other appointments, okay? A lot of other dead ends. And I got the tilt table test done. And wow, I remember it was torture. But when, at this point, we're probably 2 years in to no answers and absolute total misery. I'm not standing, I'm not cooking, I'm not cleaning, I'm not doing much of anything. I am surviving and barely. And I'm hiding it the best I can. So I remember when she walked in the door and her chart was against her chest, and she said, well, you definitely have POTS. And I was, not that I'm dramatic, I was sitting in my chair and I just fell out of it to my knees and started bawling. Because as a hyper-independent person that's continually being told it's in your head and wants to get up and is not enjoying losing her life, has so much to do and wants to do, and then acting like I'm just a drama queen, that's pretty traumatic. And so just the validation of a diagnosis, good or bad, and that was the first one, was tremendous. And she said it's one of the worst cases. She was like, you definitely have POTS. So, but that didn't really do much. Because POTS, if you have it, guys, it's a symptom. The first thing you should be asking, which I've learned, if you have POTS and somebody tells you you have POTS, is say, what could be causing it? And if that doctor says they don't know, go find out what. And the reason I'm holding my hand like this, by the way, is because my head is like a bobblehead. And so it's really weak. We're going to get to that. But I have to hold it up. And I'll fake it for short term, but not for a 30-minute video. So, fast forward another probably 1.5 to 2 years. And I've gotten enough groups to see the mention of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I know my first cousin's son has what she calls the trifecta. Her son has POTS, EDS, Ehlers-Danlos, and mast cell activation. I figured out mast cell before the POTS and before I got sick because I almost died of anaphylaxis. And all these are linked, and they call it the trifecta. So, all in my dad's side of the family, a lot of the women and men have these conditions because it is genetic. And so what caused my POTS? Well, for me, for sure, it's hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. That's a type of Ehlers-Danlos. There's like 15. So it's called HEDS. And I went up to found on TikTok this place called Boro Clinic for this. My son, who has a heart condition, I suspected had this as well. I needed to get it on his chart. I was motivated, and I got up there, got us tested. They did the genetic testing to rule out anything else, like classic EDS or vascular, and all the other stuff. And then they did autoimmune panel, which was negative. And then they did an in-clinic Baton scale to see, and they score you on that. Look for all this stuff. I think it's like papules on your feet, heels. There's vein, what's it called when your veins are real? They show real. Skin, and then your joints, mobility by points. And so Jonathan scored higher than me, but we both tested for it. And then with a negative autoimmune panel, we were both diagnosed with HEDS. So that comes with a lot of other stuff. There's black box antibiotics you're not supposed to take. We are generally immune to local anesthesia and have anesthesia issues in general. There's a lot. People say, why get diagnosed? There's a lot of reasons. My son has a heart condition. If he ever has surgery, there is wound healing issues. There's anesthesia issues. It's really important that those people, even the way his connective tissue is going to act if they were to mess with that vein or that pulmonary, it's important to know. He's got extra stretchy and odd connective tissue from hereditary Ehlers-Danlos. Connective tissue is in everything. It's your skin, it's your veins, it's your sheathing of your nerves. It's everywhere. It's your ligaments, it's your tendons. And if that's all wonky, doesn't form right, is extra stretchy, it can cause all kinds of things. So these conditions are semi-new, new to research. I mean, MCAS, I think, became diagnosable in 2015. I think POTS was the 90s. POTS is common, not rare. but it takes years to get diagnosed, and even longer for HEDS, heads. Um, most people's 5 to 7 years or longer because, well, sometimes it's us not being able to explain some things, but a lot of times it's really super clear. Mine's more nuanced. I'm not like a pretzel bending backwards, but there are people that are, and doctors just don't know. And because we have issues that are systemic, we go, like I say, it's like, you have car issues and it's like the windshield wipers are going off randomly for some reason. So you go to a windshield wiper doctor, and then you go to a headlight doctor, and then you realize it's the electrical system of the car and it's causing all this weird stuff. But it's hard to put those things together, even for someone who's like me, that's a dot connector. Okay, had to pause again. It's getting long. It's hard to figure out yourself. It's hard to say the right words. You're not sure what symptoms to talk about because you have so many. Even this week, getting some diagnoses, I was like, oh, yeah, that does happen to my eyes. I've never mentioned it to a doctor. It's so far down the list, and it didn't seem important. But then when I got the diagnosis of what I got, I was like, oh, and all this other stuff too. I'm like, I haven't even got there with that neurologist yet. But so far, I have a diagnosis of POTS and MCAS and Ehlers-Danlos. So I have hit the trifecta. And I'm kind of stalled out. As far as how I'm treating this, Vyvanse. Like, I'm not salt, Propel. I can't just drink water. It's also hard to swallow. But Vyvanse is a vasoconstrictor. It's the only thing that helps enough with the fatigue to be able to function at all, or I'd be on disability. It comes with its own stuff, but it keeps me employed. And then finally for the insomnia, I tried all the typical like sleep drugs, none of them worked. I feel really, really tired and couldn't sleep. And then there's this new one called QVivic that works specifically on the mechanism that helps you fall asleep, which I think was my issue. And thank God I got that done. Now I've got a sleep study coming up because I suspect I'm still not sleeping well, and that might be the root of some of this fatigue, but we'll see. And this comes in waves, like when you're just functional enough and you're in Mississippi where you can't find specialists that you need, and it's money and it's battling insurance. You kind of just go along for a while until you get a second wind to tackle it again. To say, okay, now who? Okay, I don't really know a neurologist that, And so that's what I did recently, and I just Googled, and I found one, and I looked for a woman who, it might be a smaller clinic, because sometimes when they're in the big stuff, they just you gotta find somebody that'll at least listen. And I just prayed for a medical Christine, like a dot connector that would listen to my whole thing, that would refer me to the other doctors I need. And so I walked in not knowing this woman, and that's exactly what she did. She listened to all my stuff, and she makes lists for me. She's got me an EEG, cranial, like a brain MRI, an optic MRI, a cervical, and I need the insurance who denied it twice to do my back, my thoracic and lumbar, but we're battling that. I've gotten an EEG, a typical one, and now I'm getting a 5-day EEG. I have to stay home and be hooked to the Wi-Fi. That'll be fun. I've got a sleep study coming up. I just saw an endocrinologist. I've got a rheumatology appointment. And now with this diagnosis this week, I'm going to see an ophthalmologist and a neurosurgeon. So we'll get to that. So what they've come with there's so much more, but I'm just going to hit what I can hit. My brain's losing it now. This week, when I got back the optic MRI, because they saw what they thought was empty sella, meaning your pituitary gland is kind of partially crushed. And they saw what they thought was optic neuritis bilateral. I was kind of scared of that because my muscle weakness has gotten so bad, I was scared I might have MS. But then I read it didn't add up. And then she said, well, it might be MOG or MOGAD. But when I read that, it didn't add up either. And so just behind the scenes, I'm like, I don't think that's going to be, those are bad. And I don't think that's going to be what it is. And there were no lesions on my brain. So there could be in my spine, but, and it's normally not bilateral, the optic neuritis, when you have MS. So anyway, finally got the optic MRI, and it was not neuritis, but it was papilledema. I think I'm saying that right. Basically, the nerves in my eyes were smushed because of pressure, like cerebral spinal fluid filling up in my brain and putting pressure on those nerves. And it was kind of important because she said you can go blind, or whatever vision you lose, you could lose it permanently. And I have to get a medicine to drain, like a diuretic for that. But I had to get to an ophthalmologist to see the papilledema, I can't say it, and prove that, just to have it on my chart. And if I don't get that by end of this week or next week, she said start on the other 2 medicines immediately. We're not playing around with this. So, and then I have to lose weight because body mass index is like most people who have this, like are heavy and overweight. It's interesting, when all this started, I was not. And my weight has always been a thing that I don't understand because I don't eat a lot. Like, I pick at food. I eat like 1 meal a day. I can eat. I don't eat healthy. I'll drink Mountain Dew and I love candy. But I'm still not, I know I'm not having the calorie intake to be big, especially big like I was. And when I took my Vyvanse, like the lowest, like the normal dose, nothing crazy, I lost 100 pounds. And that don't make sense either. And so all I could think of is maybe the vasoconstriction made my pituitary gland, like gave me the pressure where that could open back up and function. But I have no idea. That's not medical. That's just me. I don't know. But anyway, so she wants me to go to a weight loss doctor, like get on the shot thing to get my, because I lost 100 pounds and I've gained back like 50 and nothing has changed. I'm still just barely eating. So, but I got to get on that and get to an ophthalmologist. And that is indicative, the papilledema and all that, of something called IIH, like idiopathic intracranial hypotension. It used to be called cerebro-pseudo tumor, meaning basically it's like you have a brain tumor, but you don't. And there's pressure on your brain, and it's from fluid, excessive CSF fluid. She also found on my neck at the C5, C6 junction a disc protrusion of 1.8 centimeters, which is moderate compression of my spinal cord and my right nerve root, and an old injury disc protrusion that's mild, but hitting my, from C6, C7, that's hitting my left nerve root. And that right there is what I've been saying for 4 years. For 3.5 to 4 years, like not long after this, I landed on something called cranial cervical instability. And I was like, I did something to my neck. Around that time, I couldn't pop my neck anymore, and I couldn't turn it right for like 8 months. And Ehlers-Danlos, when you have that squishy ligaments and skin and all that, you can lose stuff in your neck to where then you have all these issues. And that's where the brain stem is, and that's where your spinal cord is, and that's where your jugular vein is, and that's where all your important nerves are, the control center, all the neurological symptoms, all that's just my whole body falling apart. It's something in my neck. And if it is CCI, it's really, really, really hard to get the right testing done, and almost impossible to find the doctors that can properly read or treat it. And it was 3.5 years ago that I found a guy in Colorado that was like, this is the answer, but he doesn't take insurance. And it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's just, if I could have got back there 3 years ago, I'm convinced I'd be better now. And ultimately, I'm going to keep getting passed around doctors here. I'm going to go to neurosurgeon. They're going to say, get surgery. Don't do that. If you have EDS, you want to do the least invasive thing. It can make you, it's more risk of being paralyzed than the other. Unless you were like internally almost decapitated, do not do surgery first. Try every other option. And so I'm looking at how to get to him, how to find the money, raise it, get up to Colorado and be seen by him. And that's where I'm hedging my bets. I'm still going to go through all the testing I'm doing here because it helps. I can have a lot of other things going on. I suspect something called Sorgens. I don't know how to say it, but when I read it, I'm like, yeah, I think I have Sorgens. So here's for the record, because I just want to say it, because I have landed on this forever. When this is all said and done, I'm going to have, I guarantee you, cranial cervical instability, causing venous compression, probably IGBS, which is causing issues with backup of cerebral spinal fluid and affecting my vagus nerve. And all that together is causing everything else. And they're also going to find out that at the base of my spine, guarantee you, I have something called tethered cord, a colt, tether cord. We haven't even got there yet, but I know I do. And he is the one who can diagnose and actually fix all that in a way that it might still preserve my spine and not make things worse with surgical intervention. And there's a lot of scam artists out there doing weird things with this that claim to be doing what he's doing, and they're not. And so if you're having these issues, maybe you're close to Colorado, maybe you can afford it. Like, if I had the money, I'd be fixed right now. And I'm going to figure out a way to do it because I have my whole life. Just tell me I can't and watch me. And I have struggled with trusting my own intuition, my own dot connecting. I think there's a balance and a dance between the medical system and you, because there are great doctors out there, but only you know what you're experiencing. Only you know those things. And it has to be a thing that if you have a good doctor, there's a dance of like, hey, I want to advocate for myself. I'm suspecting this. Can we get this done? Okay, I have to run now, but so why I'm holding my head like this is because cranial cervical instability makes you feel like you have a bobblehead, like it's real heavy that you can't hold it up. I believe that when I'm sleeping, the sleep study should be interesting, that I may be sleeping in a way that my neck is funky and compressing jugular vein, and all the toxins and everything at night, everything drains out of there. And if I'm backing up, like it's getting crimped and it's backing up the pressure in my head of cerebral spinal fluid and blood, so the point where it's like pressing on my eye nerves and messing with my vision and collapsing my pituitary glands and causing headaches that I can't even explain to you. Like, sometimes I think maybe I had a stroke back when because of like my muscle stuff or I don't know. I hope not, but I know it can cause that. And so we got to get this addressed, but I have clues, I have answers. And since they keep reinforcing what I've thought for 3.5 years, I'm going to do all the tests because they help. I need to have these tests anyway. There are a lot of times other things that are going on and I need to get these done. But I know my hope and my fix is sitting in Colorado with that doctor. And I'm going to get there. I don't know how yet, but watch me. So there's my story. This is probably the most therapeutic thing I've done. I don't even know when or how I'll post it all. I doubt many people will listen to all this mess, but it's for me. And if somebody listened, that's probably the greatest gift you could give me because it's very isolating going through all this. And I'm okay. I'm not okay. Things are horrible in some sense. I have a happy family. I have an incredible support system. I do not know what I would do without my husband and my friends and my clients and everybody who supports me. But I also tell different pieces of the puzzle. You can tell this is a lot, and I really haven't hit half of it. So when people say, how are you feeling? It's sad because that's what you ask somebody who had the flu. And I understand because there was a time when I didn't feel this bad. But the truth is, if you ask, how are you feeling? Or is Christine doing better? I'm not. I have variance in days. But if I tell you I'm feeling good, that just means things are at a minimum. I'm always hurting. I'm always feeling like I have the flu. I'm always battling brain fog. I'm just always in rough shape, to be honest. And that can be, how do you deal with that as somebody who wants to help or support? And so if you have anybody that deals with chronic illness, stuff like this, it's different for everybody. For me, it's just, man, if you could just know, like, watch this video. This is the most valuable thing. If someone were to, people ask me that do know that I'm not feeling, they don't know everything, but they'll be like, how are you feeling? And sometimes it's like, I don't know how to answer. God, buy them a maid service. Buy them a one-time deep clean of their house. Give them a gift card for DoorDash. Just put your hand on their shoulder and say, I want you to know I'm praying for you, or I care about you. I know you're going through it. Understand if they cancel stuff that they're not being flaky. Understand they don't want attention or drama. If I were to say like the words like cancer, and somebody's going through cancer, in your mind, you have an idea of, and an immediate sympathy. Sometimes if I say lupus or Lyme's, you might be able to grasp that. With what I have, the quality of life is like end-stage kidney dialysis or COPD. It's likened to that, and it's still a spectrum, because again, I think I had all these things before I got sick, and I was still rocking it. I was still doing a lot. I don't, looking back with these lens of understanding that a lot of that wasn't normal, I don't think I was ever feeling great, but I was okay. But for me, the support comes in knowledge, and the support comes in acts of service. For right now, the guilt that I feel, there's just this innate guttural feeling to take care of your kids. Like, I remember grocery shopping, I felt so like, it was like maternal. Meal planning and cooking is maternal. Being at everything. And I'm a good mom, but that's still hard. Having it all be put on your husband. He has stuff going on too. By the way, in the middle of all this, 2 years ago, I started my own business. But if you want to know, a lot of it is, like, I'm not employable right now. I couldn't get up at 7 in the morning and be at a job at 8. I could never stand. Even where I was working before, I had to have so many accommodations. In my office right now, on Main Street, I have to have a big comfy couch and I have to have my legs up. Sitting in a chair with my legs down is misery, and I had to do it about 2 hours a week at church and at my B&I group. Otherwise, I have to have my legs up. All the sensory issues. If I had a choice, I'd have headphones on at all times and it'd be in the dark, because the sensory stuff is absolutely overwhelming. I didn't know what it was, but yeah. Everywhere I go, there's headphones in my purse. And when I'm alone, I have headphones on. It just helps. And that's nervous system stuff. Just being hypersensitive to stimuli. And that's why sometimes, like, people who say they have fibromyalgia, I suspect they will find out that every bit of that is nerve sensitivity from heads, undiagnosed. I don't think fibromyalgia is its own thing. And I think a lot of women, if it is, are getting thrown in that bucket that really have what I have going on. So, anyway, yeah, this is extremely therapeutic. For all of you that ask what's going on with me, this is what's going on. I know so many people love me and care about me and are worried about me and support me. I think a lot of people in my situation would be on disability. And I think I would pass away if I did that, because I think that I have to have a purpose. And I have found it in my career, and I'm still able to do it. Still able to use what's left of this brain and this body to help my clients. I worry all the time if they knew what bad shape I'm in, maybe they wouldn't want me. That's why a lot of reason why I hit it too. But I found that not to be the case at all. I found I'm still extremely helpful. They know that. They may not know what all I got going on, or, but they care about me and they support me, and they're not like, well, she's incapable. So that fear is gone. And even though my Judah Bear, who's 10, has experienced a much different childhood than my Jonathan when I was Pinterest's mom, it looks different, but you know what? If he's in bed with me cuddled and we're talking about all of his special interests and watching shows together, it's made that happen more than the busyness. And he'll remember that. Maybe I wasn't cooking. Maybe I wasn't cleaning. So that's the way I have to look at things, I'm a glass half full person. So if I ever get really down about this, it is a rare occasion, because I'm looking at the silver lining in everything. It's just how I am as a person, and I think it's how I'm getting through this. So that's it. If you have any questions, You can shoot me a direct message if you have anybody dealing with this. It is my privilege and honor and one of my last remaining purposes in life that I can do to help anybody who has any of these diagnoses to, I'm not there yet, but to try to aim you towards some doctors or testing or just right now fixes helps. And I have had so many people do so, and it's been an honor. And I'm looking at stuff in the future. My husband is launching a blog. He didn't even tell me about it, but it's to do with this. I don't know when it goes live, but he's doing this because he's amazing. He didn't ask me, but he wants people to understand what's going on, and especially from a caretaker's point of view. It's very hard for him too. Everything changing, and we're going to put resources on there and try to make it not just our journey or his journey, but a resource hub for people. As we find answers, we're gonna put them there and try to get them organized for you. So that's coming. But anytime you have a loved one or you are going through any of these POTS, Ehlers-Danlos, or mast cell, or anything with intracranial hypertension, vein compression, or stenosis, any nervous system stuff. The thing is, I learned a lot about a ton of conditions because when I was nothing to do but research and eliminate things, I learned a little bit about everything. So I'm happy to help anybody, and it really is. When I was bedridden, I prayed for that. I prayed, Lord, just get me out of this bed and send me people that don't know at all what they have, and let me help them, please, if you get me out of this bed. And that He has done that over and over and over again. And then there's a lot of life lessons I'm learning too. When I was in bed, crying, and Luke took my hand and said, I'm no good. I'm not being a good mom. I'm not going to be a wife. I can't take care of y'all. And he took my hand and said, Christine, your worth is not in your utility. And for someone who has defined their worth as their utility, to get it done, to make it happen, girl, to hear that from the man I love most on this earth was transforming, and it's something I still have to remind myself of all the time. It's hard because when there's almost no utility, you're kind of like, but I have a lot left. I still have a lot of utility. The things I'm still pulling off, give me hope. And I'm going to use those superpowers of dot connecting and research and everything that I do for my clients and I've done for my husband in ministry to love on myself and to figure things out for myself and to advocate for myself from this point forward, because I can get back to loving on people better and being better if I get better. And if I don't, that's okay too. But I don't think that's the case. I think there's a path forward here, and I think that there's healing. And I think I'm going to be back to myself with a lot of modifications and lessons learned and ways to treat this moving forward and keep myself in good shape till old age. And you know what? For my 16-year-old who's already been diagnosed with this, and for my 10-year-old who I highly suspect, I'm doing work that's going to serve them so much. And so they can start out early and maybe not experience these things. And that is also constantly in my mind, and also a reason why I want to share. So, and also just selfishly, I want to share. Like, selfishly, I'm alone in this. It's sad. It's hard. I want somebody to know because it's lonely. So it's not all noble. But I also want to help other people having it, and I also want to help my children and our children. This is highly hereditary. It's also why we don't get diagnosed. We experience things, and we might ask our parent, oh, my stomach hurts every morning when I wake up for the first 2 hours. Well, that's normal, baby. Well, it's normal for us, so then we don't go to the doctor because our parents, it happened to them, so we tell our kids that. It's not normal. It's our normal. And so a lot of times we don't get to the doctor for a long time because of that hereditary nature. It's really important, if you have this, to look at the HEDGE study, HEDGE, happening this year. It is huge. I'll get into it in a separate video, but I think we're going to get diagnostic criteria, and to me, if we get that, we're chasing the trail up to what's the cause and how do we fix this. And so I have a lot of hope, yes, for me, but especially for my kids going forward. There's hope, guys. There's hope. Find it, like a little plant that's in a, there'll be one plant on a volcano, and just water it, and take care of it and nurture it, and don't let hope die. That's it.